Thanks everyone for joining us here today for our webinar with the Schwab integration. So my name is Emma Reardon. I am a customer success manager here at YCharts within the Midwest region. I also have Chris Candela here as well. He is a senior integration consultant for third-party programs for Charles Schwab. So thanks, Chris, for joining us. How are you today, Chris?
Doing great. How about you, Emma?
I am good, thank you. Um, Thanks again, everyone, for joining here today. If you have any questions during the webinar, please submit them at the bottom of the screen where there is that chat Q&A section. We will try to get to as many as we can here today. Also, please keep in mind that the content for this webinar is meant for educational purposes only and is not intended to be used as investment advice, nor is YCharts acting as a advising party regarding client funds in any way. Also would like to point out that a recording of this webinar will be emailed to everyone afterwards and will also be available on our YouTube channel. For those who aren't currently signed up for YCharts as well, you can receive 20% off your new YCharts professional subscription through the 18th. So feel free to reach out to hello@ycharts.com for more information or start a free trial as well. Here is just a quick overview of our agenda today. So I will just do a bit of a quick YCharts overview for those who maybe aren't familiar with YCharts. We'll then go through the Schwab integration program and how data is passed to YCharts. Then we'll jump into the integration process for the Schwab integration, as well as go through a quick demo of how you can leverage Schwab portfolio data within the platform. So just thinking of a quick overview of what YCharts is, this is a really great visual that highlights what it can be utilized for, as well as how the Schwab integration flows really seamlessly into this. So this circle here highlights the different modes of utilizing the platform. You can start here on the left side for that position and market monitoring. So we have the ability to track overall market movements, economic data through things like your dashboard, security-specific information, to be able to monitor those particular investments. That then flows into the strategy assessment, being able to create different visuals like our charting and table tools, as well as idea generating. So utilizing different screens, scoring models for due diligence, confirming and validating those particular investments that you hold. Then we'll flow into due diligence side of things, creating different tear sheets, utilizing our table tools for analysis and outputs. And then the last one, big one, especially for the Schwab integration, is going to be the portfolio construction side of things. So being able to build your own models within the system, pull in client accounts directly from Schwab into the platform to then make recommendations, make adjustments, or even just monitoring those securities over time as well. I will jump it over to Chris for a little bit of background as well as how Schwab integrates there too.
Perfect. Thanks, Emma. So I'm part of Schwab's third-party integrations team, and my clients are vendors such as YCharts who want to integrate with Schwab Advisor Center data. And our integration program really has four types of categories or methods where we can exchange data with a third-party platform. Flat data files is the simplest and easiest. We have single sign-on from third-party platforms from third-party platforms to Schwab Advisor Center. We have trading integrations, and then we have our API integrations. All in all, we have over 230 vendors in our integration program, and that list of vendors range from categories such as CRM, reporting platforms, financial planning. So there's really a lot of outside support and third-party vendors that are participating in our program. We have over 25 different types of API connections that third-party platforms can use. Those range from digital account opening to address changes to alerts, real-time balances and positions, and even standing letters of authorization as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there. YCharts has taken advantage of our balances and positions API, as well as our integration with iRebal. So I'm real excited for Emma to talk about what they've done with the Schwab integration.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. So that's a great segue into the demo portion of this webinar here. So I am within our YCharts dashboard. To set up the Schwab integration, super simple process. Within the support option, we'll jump over to integrations here. This will pull in all of our different integration partners. All you'll have to do is just activate that particular Schwab integration. You'll also see too, it works with iRebal as well. So for the demo, I will touch on how we can pull in a client's portfolio as well as an iRebal model to then push back into iRebal too. So once that integration is active, like what it says for me here, I'll jump into the tools button. We'll just pause for a moment on the tools section, kind of thinking back to that visual we were just looking at. This is a great way to also see how YCharts can be utilized, whether that's for monitoring securities, research purposes, visualizing information, as well as the manage side for portfolios here. Once you have that Schwab integration up and running, within the import holdings, we'll then simply select that particular icon here. Then you'll have the option to search for the client name, account, the model within iRebal, the blended model, or the portfolio, all within iRebal. So if I just search for John, for example, we'll start to see those different results here. When I go ahead and click next, it'll then allow you to select all accounts where you can import the particular holdings as is, or if you wanted to import that as a single holding just to aggregate those values, you could do so as well. When I then go ahead and click import here, this is how the information is going to pull in. So we'll be pulling in those current holdings as well as their current allocations from Schwab directly into the platform. All of that information is masked within the site here, but you can say things like the particular name, some different description information, and then whatever those current holdings are, and in this case, those current dollar values as well. A few other things you can do for adjustments here. So I can always adjust the particular benchmark over to something like a blended benchmark or utilizing a different index from the S&P 500, apply a advisory fee to that particular portfolio just to have those returns be net of that fee we select before I would go ahead and save this down here. I already have this saved down, so I'll just jump into that model output. Sorry, wrong one. So once we have that information imported into the platform, you can then view any performance information, allocation data, risk info for that specific portfolio here for us then to maybe evaluate and make recommendation changes, maybe be able to suggest and even transition into one of our particular models that we'd like. The quote page we're on right now shows a lot of those different items here. But then you'll have a ton of different analysis available to you. I'll just point out a few. Something like the performance tab that allows you to dig a little deeper into some different hypothetical cumulative returns against the benchmark, periodic returns, as well as different annual returns. The allocation section, this will show us the more general asset allocations. We can see this is a pretty stock heavy portfolio. some region exposure, as well as some different stock or style exposure, even bond exposure if that applies there too. And then two, if I like to just visualize that particular portfolio a little further, within this stress test tab here, this is going to allow you to stress test that particular strategy, again, with the benchmark or even adding in a comparison security. So maybe if we'd like to make that recommendation change into a different portfolio, this will show us things like COVID, inflation, oil price collapse, things like that, or you can even create your own particular timeframes. Few other things you can do too. We can view general attribution information. You can transition that particular portfolio into a model, or we'll have things like ESG data for that overall portfolio and those securities underlying too. When we're thinking of making any changes or maybe making a recommendation change, a really easy place then to go is going to be to utilize our quick flows feature on the right side here. This is kind of like your own research assistant within YCharts. I have here this particular portfolio, as well as one of the models that I would maybe be making that recommendation. And this will just pull in a ton of our different analysis, whether that's in more of a table format or something like this quick performance chart visual here. This is allowing us to see some different periodic returns, so things like a 1 year, a 3 year, 5 year, that can all be branded. Your own color scheme, your own logo will pull through here as well. Or maybe we'd like to see a slightly different visual. So this is a pretty stock heavy portfolio. Maybe I'd like to see what that risk reward looks like on a scatter plot format here. So with that, John Smith example pulled in, compared against my aggressive growth model, we can see slightly higher returns, but you are taking on more risk compared to our portfolio that would be here. I can even do something like adding in an additional benchmark there too, just allowing us to see how those compare against each other. So now that we have a more general understanding of what that portfolio looks like, then we can make some different presentation outputs available to you for those client conversations and client communication. The biggest tool that we'll utilize is going to be back within. Actually, I'll go back into that portfolio we were just looking at. Will be our reports feature here in the top right corner. This is going to allow you to generate your own PDF report output. In the case of maybe making recommendations or taking on new clients, I can utilize our comparison tool here. This is going to allow us to do a direct side-by-side comparison. Here's an example of what that looks like as an output for us. So this is one of our comprehensive reports, so a more pre-canned version that you can then make any adjustments to and fully customize as well. So this is going to touch on those different return information, allocation data, exposure information, all branded, will include your logo, and as we'll see in a moment, very customizable in the sense of creating that custom template too. The way that we can make any of these adjustments is back within the Tools feature and our Report Builder tool. We've had a ton of new customizations available within the report template, where within this new from YCharts template just shows a overview of what this would look like. You can create your own custom side-by-side report output, as well as even something like a tear sheet if you're wanting to create a quick one-page overview, short description, or what we'll touch on here is that comparison side-by-side. I like going through something like the comprehensive. That's going to be a more extensive report for us. And as we'll see, once I select that report orientation, the ease of use for our report builder tool just allows us to flow through those particular pages, maybe deciding we would like to exclude certain information. So I can simply delete something like the expanded region exposure if I'd like. I can even look into particular modules, something like this periodic return and key stats section, to see I can fully customize those different metrics that are pulled into this first page here. this is a great option, especially maybe if I like to call out certain aspects, and especially when we're comparing that portfolio against our recommendations, be able to easily have that conversation with clients. Or if I add in a new page here, this is going to show us all of our different customizations available. So essentially anything you see within the YCharts platform can be pulled into these reports, whether that is different performance information, attribution analysis, risk information. So something like that stress test tab, we can simply pull in here for those talking points, allocation data, holdings breakdown, some different proposals and scenarios, any custom charts and tables, so any saved assets across the platform can be pulled in here too. And then we'll be very customizable in the sense of building in any disclosures and definitions, as well as this other section. This will allow you to add in things like your own custom text, any custom cover page that you'd like, or this full page image option. This is a great option, especially on the branding side of things. You can pull in a custom cover page that you have, something like a meet the team, or if there is any additional disclosure language needed, as long as it's saved as a PDF or within a particular file, we will just pull all of that information into the platform here. So this is going to be on the more proposal side of things. Another quick item I want to touch on for the report builder, it's back within that new from template option. We'll also have these proposals here. These are really great. I'll grab that comprehensive proposal again. These are really great for one key item that isn't necessarily within those comparison reports we were looking at, and it's for this talking points feature here. So talking points is going to allow you to pull in any particular metric that you like within the system, to then add in any of your own commentary, a general definition on why it's important to look at things like the dividend yield or stock allocation. And this can be generated on the fly too. So especially once you have imported that portfolio from Schwab into the platform, you can then jump into Report Builder, make any of those custom adjustments, and have that custom proposal specific to the client that you are chatting with, having that conversation with, and have it be very personalized to them. So that is on the report builder side of things, as well as when we are wanting to analyze something like a client portfolio. The other great thing about the Schwab integration that is a newer update is the ability to import through iRebal. So this is going to be a two-way integration. So that means that you can pull in your own model within iRebal, that blended model or portfolio, analyze the model within the system, and then you can re-push that back into iRebal to have any of those parameters set up within iRebal and just have it be more of a two-way street there. So I'll show you again what this looks like. I can just search for those keywords. We'll then pull in those particular models for us. When I import that, very similar to something like that client portfolio we were just looking at, this is pulling in the particular target weights there. But again, if you did want to make any adjustments, you could do so before we go ahead and jump into this model. So for this kind of second half of things, I'll focus a little more on the analysis side, so more on the due diligence, maybe finding alternative investments there. A big one I like pointing out within the holding section here and within the categorize option, especially for due diligence, validating your selections, we'll have this categorize option. This is going to pull in different key stats, performance, and risk metrics for us right away. It's grouping it by more general broad asset class, but I can also specify within the particular fund category, equity style, or sector, just to group those things a little differently. And this is allowing me to easily see how my particular holdings and selections compare against an overall benchmark or their particular peers within the category too. So for example, here I can see how my particular fund compares against the overall US equity benchmark too. We can also view something like the correlation matrix here. This is also a newer feature, just allowing us to see how closely correlated those holdings are to each other to mitigate any risk, being able to see anything very correlated in blue. As it gets lighter and more orange, that'll represent any of those anti-correlated holdings. Again, just allowing us to see maybe if a change does need to be made within that portfolio. What we can then do, taking even a step further, maybe after we have analyzed these holdings a little further, if I even use something like attribution here to see any top contributors and bottom detractors there, I can go back into quick flows. Back within the single side though, I'll get rid of that portfolio and just enter in a specific fund. So now I would like to see if there are any alternative options available for us, or what those similar securities would look like. We will build a few different screeners for you. Something like this find funds ranked in category, for example. This will pull us into our screener tool, more for that idea generating side of things. This is going to be looking at the particular category of that fund, to then view any securities within the top 50th percentile based on their 1, 3, and 5-year returns, as well as the expense ratio, and the alpha too. So rather than having to totally start from scratch, Quick Flows is allowing us to just have a jumping off point. And we can see here as it loads, we'll have 58 results for both ETFs and mutual funds there too. So we can now see just with that one click, I'm able to see my particular fund universe. I can then sort by something like the expense ratio, see maybe if there is a particular fund that has a lower expense, if maybe it has better returns or better rank for us. We can even apply our own filters, our own criteria based on different qualitative or quantitative options, to then have that result here. So I can now compare those funds. I could even go back into quick flows, go through the comparison side and maybe compare a group of funds too before I then make a replacement option. Another big thing we can do too, so I'll pull in that balanced ETF model that we imported through iRebal. We can also validate those particular selections too. Under this performance section here, we'll have our optimizer tool that is going to allow you to find a more optimized version of that portfolio based on particular strategies like the Sharpe ratio or minimizing the standard deviation. So if I grab something like this maximize Sharpe ratio, we're now being pulled into our optimizer tool. I can even select particular weight bands. So maybe I want everything to fall within 2% of their target weights. When I click submit here, we'll also see a few different strategies we have available based on the Sharpe ratio, meeting some type of target return or target standard deviation, or minimizing the standard deviation to find a more conservative version. This will calculate for us and pull us into a efficient frontier line. We can then, as I zoom in, we'll see that optimized portfolio here in orange. It's updated holdings here in the top right corner, as well as where my original portfolio will lay. But something I can do if you would like to see a different portfolio, so looking at the standard deviation here, maybe I'd like to see the same level of return, but less risks taken on. I can just simply drag my mouse all the way to that efficient frontier line. This is then going to pull us into an updated portfolio too. I can then see some different portfolio summary information, how those allocations compare to against each other right next to each other here. And then I'm able to export this as a model portfolio. So now this will pull us back into that particular portfolios page. I can resave this down. I'll pull in that optimized version that I have created. And then if I would like to push that back into Rebal, under the Actions option, you'll see the ability to push to iRebal here. So once I click push, it'll pull back into iRebal, and then you can make any of those adjustments or whatever you'd like there.
Yeah, and just a little extra context there is YCharts is the only vendor who has this type of integration with iRebal that Emma's showing. There are some others who are building to it, but YCharts was first to market with it, and they've just absolutely nailed it here within their platform. So exciting stuff for those of you on the line who are current Schwab users and specifically current iRebal users.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Perfect. Um, awesome. Well, then, just one other thing to point out, kind of thinking through the iRebal integration just a little further even. A few other things you can do even more on the monitoring side of things. You can create particular alerts within the system if you'd like to keep track of that overall portfolio. Or if we go back into our dashboard here for a moment too, on your particular dashboard page, this is going to be a great place to monitor those overall portfolios, pull in some different key stats, things like an efficient frontier line, comparing those underlying holdings against each other, again, just for that due diligence side of things or monitoring too within the platform. Okay. Well, I think that is actually all I wanted to touch on for the um, demo portion of things. So I'll jump back into the website here and we can go through any questions that we may have. Okay, so feel free to add in any of your questions as well. So I see someone here asking, do the holdings show direct and indirect? So if I go back into the site and I'll jump back into that balanced ETF portfolio we created, you can view the holdings here. This is going to show just the overall funds, any individual securities held with their particular target weights and current weights. You can also view the holdings overlap. This is going to drill into any of those any securities held outright to show what that overlap would be. So for example, if I look at something like Apple or even Microsoft, I can see that all of that particular 1.73% allocation there is coming from SPY. If there were multiple securities that held that, those would be represented as well, just in a row there too. And then you can also, even just thinking of attribution for a moment here, this is going to allow you to show the overall absolute attribution, just viewing the pure performance. Or you can also view the attribution relative to a designated benchmark. That's going to allow you, based on its sector or equity style, to drill into how does your allocation process, so that overall allocation, compare. How does the selection process, so looking at actually the underlying holdings within each security, and then how do those two interact with each other to show any underperformance or outperformance as well. So definitely lots you can view in terms of the holdings breakdown.
Emma, there's a question here. Does the integration with iRebal work through iRebal standalone version or the web version? So this integration is with the iRebal version that's web-based, and that's through Schwab Advisor Center.
Perfect. Okay. I also see a question. Can you create a report similar to a X-ray report in which I can see the total of specific holdings of each stock/bond? Okay, so that kind of ties into the holdings overlap of being able to see the total holdings within each particular portfolio, but then also viewing the underlying holdings. So you can pull that in as a particular data point or a specific module as well within our report builder tool. Okay. Someone is asking, can I customize the benchmark to include private investments like private credit, real estate, equity? You can create a custom benchmark within the platform. For something like those more private investments, you can utilize either a ETF or a index version of those particular securities. So just being able to show that general allocation. Using either ETFs or indices. Under the blank portfolio option, we'll have our benchmark portfolio input here. Very similar to what we were viewing in terms of those editing pages, to where you would just search for those particular funds or indices and then apply that particular allocation. Once these are saved within the platform, you can then adjust the benchmark on your specific portfolio to use the blended benchmark that you've created too. Um, Someone is asking, can I compare different models with each other? We can use something like those PDF report outputs to compare multiple models. This is just showing, and the example we went through is showing a side-by-side report. We'll also have a multi-comparison report option that allows you to compare up to 6 different portfolios within one output. So that's a really great option for something like householding or family accounts when you're maybe wanting to show a more aggregated view, but then also break it down by account too. Or when you have those portfolios saved within the platform, you can pull it into any table tool, you can pull it into any chart, generate a report. It does allow you, once you have that portfolio within the system, to kind of move throughout the platform easily there. Um, I see a question on do individual fixed income CUSIPs get aggregated together when you import them as if they were a fund almost? So when you import through Schwab or any of the integrations, if it is something like a individual bond that we won't carry within the system, it's going to import that particular symbol. It'll then show the allocation. You can then apply a proxy or remove it from the portfolio. If you apply that as a proxy, it'll allow you to save that down going forward as a preference. So then anytime you would import that particular symbol, it will update to just the proxy that you've selected.
Emma, there's a question here relating to iRebal. It says, can you import cost basis information from the Schwab/iRebal connection? So the integration is for models only. Cost basis is not included in that API. We do offer cost basis, a separate API just to bring over the cost basis. But in terms of the iRebal integration, it's just models, no cost basis info on that. And then while I've got the mic here, another question, is there any cost on either the Schwab side or the YCharts side for the iRebal integration? And the answer to that is no. It's free to you. There may be some setup that you need to do within YCharts, but if you are interested and you're not taking advantage of the iRebal integration or the other Schwab integration with YCharts for that matter, talk to your YCharts rep and they'll get you more information and get you pointed in the right direction.
Awesome. Um, Perfect. And then just one other thing too, to mention, for iRebal, you can push that back in. For anything like a client portfolio, you do have the ability to refresh the imported holdings once it's within the system. So that would allow you, if there are any changes within Schwab, once you confirm an import, it'll just refresh everything for you to save down. So just another helpful point that you won't necessarily have to import everything individually each time once it's within the platform here too. Okay. Um, well, I think we hit on everything. Any other questions? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all here today. Thanks for joining us. Again, any questions, please reach out. We are always happy to help. And thank you, Chris, too.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks
Thank you.
everyone for attending.